Welcome to this edition of the Native News Update. I'm your host for today's program, Paul DeMain. Many of the stories read here can be found at our website at IndianCountryNews.com. Here are the news stories for the day from the Associated Press and other Native news sources. A member of the Tulalip tribe has been charged with theft by an employee of a gaming establishment on Indian land in Washington state. 27-year-old Walter Anthony Moses was charged last Friday in U.S. District Court in Seattle, Washington. Moses worked as a rewards club supervisor until he was fired on May 22, 2008, when the thefts were discovered. He has been released on personal recognizance bond. An investigation showed that the thefts from customer rewards accounts began as early as January and totaled nearly $20,000. A federal judge has postponed next week's scheduled trial for a northern Arapaho man charged with killing a bald eagle for his tribe's annual Sundance without a federal permit. Judge Alan Johnson in Cheyenne, Wyoming this week granted a request from Winslow Friday's lawyer to delay trial on the misdemeanor charge. No new date has been set. Friday has acknowledged that he shot and killed the bald eagle on the Wind River Reservation in central Wyoming for use in his tribe's 2005 Sundance. Friday could face up to 1 year in jail and a $100,000 fine if convicted. Another federal judge had dismissed the charge against Friday in the year 2006, but the federal appeals court in Denver, Colorado, reinstated it. The U.S. Supreme Court earlier this year refused to hear Friday's appeal. The Ashaninka and Yenis Indians of Peru were blocking an airport in central Peruvian jungle town of Ojibwe last week, as well as two stations on a northern oil pipeline to protest laws that they say threaten their ancestral land and resources. Edson Rosales, spokesman for the Indian rights group in the Amazon, says 15,000 Indians have begun protesting since April 9th and plan to start taking over oil and gas rigs soon. He says laws passed in December of last year opened the door to privatization of water resources and jungle land used by the tribe. The protests reported last Thursday are similar to 11 days of disruptions last August that saw Indians block roads and clash with police. That unrest led Peru's government to repeal at least two of the laws designed to make it easier to sell tribal lands. The final 100 trees for Delta County on the Upper Peninsula were planted in an event on May 6th. With this planting in Delta County, approximately 11,300 trees will be in the ground in Michigan's Upper Peninsula and northeastern Wisconsin. The trees were planted over the past few days without a hitch by kids as young as 2 years old to adults in their 80s, members of several Indian tribes and 11 different faith denominations. For more information, you can go to Superior Watershed Partnership in Marquette, Michigan at superiorwatersheds.org. Forestry officials and volunteers are working to revive the American chestnut tree, the woodland giants that once dominated forests across the eastern United States. The Ohio Division of Forestry Chief David Lytle is working with others to preserve the genetic stock of the region's Native American chestnuts, a necessity since trees from Ohio might not do as well in North Carolina or Tennessee. American chestnuts that grew up to 120 feet once accounted for more than 20% of the forest in the eastern half of North America until a fungus wiped out all but a few in the early 20th century. Volunteers across the country are gradually changing the chestnut's genetics, hoping to make sure the tree is more resistant to the fungus. On May 11th, the U.S. Circuit Court for the District of Columbia will hold another hearing on the Indian Trust case. Indian Trust defendants will be challenging the August 7th ruling of U.S. District Court Judge James Robertson that held that the Indian Trust beneficiaries are not entitled to any interest on the $455 million that he believes the government failed to place in the BIA individual trust accounts. The first arguments began at 9:30 a.m. at the federal courthouse located at 333 Constitution Avenue Northwest in Washington, D.C. if you're in the area and want to attend. Also in Washington, D.C. on May 11th is the National Native Language Revitalization Summit, sponsored by Cultural Survival and the National Alliance to Save Native Languages. That conference will include a workshop with the Potlatch Fund on developing grant proposals to sustain grassroots language programs, a keynote by Blackfeet Language Immersion School Director Daryl Kipt of the Piegan Institute, and presentations by numerous leaders in the Native Language Revitalization movement. On May 13th, participants will convene on Capitol Hill to educate their congressional delegations about the critical importance of defending an increase in support for Native language programs through the Esther Martinez Native American Languages Preservation Act. Earlier this year, the United States Congress appropriated an additional $1.5 million over the enacted 2008 budget. That amount that was previously set aside was $2 million for the Esther Martinez Native American Language Preservation Act. You can find more information at and register for the conference at culturalsurvival.org. And Cultural Survival and the National Alliance to Save Native Languages is also pushing for a $5 million in Bureau of Indian Affairs funding in the federal economic stimulus package for shovel-ready projects at Native language immersion schools, some that are desperately in needs of repairs and renovations. Also, note that Working Together in Preserving Endangered Languages will be a two-day knowledge-sharing event taking place on May 21st and 22nd at the Native American Student and Community Center at Portland State University in Oregon. The Northern Arapaho tribe has started producing a new radio program dedicated to news and events on the Wind River Reservation. Tribal Public Relations Director Donovan Antelope says the Hey Tawat NewsHour serves as a radio broadcast version of the tribe's Hey Tawat monthly newsletter. The program began airing recently on KWRR, a tribally owned national public radio affiliate in Ethete, Wyoming. Antelope says the hour-long program airs on Wednesdays and features local news and interviews with local or visiting officials. He says the program also includes health tips and trivia about the tribe. Antelope says the Arapaho word, Hey Tawat, translates in English as to tell the people or telling the people. And that is the latest roundup of news from Indian Country on this edition of the Native News Update. We want to thank our underwriters for helping us with this broadcast, and for you for joining with us again. Miigwech.